Hey guys, All in Crypto here, and welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, for another YouTube video. I hope you've all had a triumphant Tuesday so far. We are, in this one, going to be diving into our daily cryptocurrency market update, where we not only tackle the realms of the cryptocurrency market, but we also look at the external world around us, as we know that our market is a part of now macro markets and gets affected by what happens with them and some of the variables that affect them. So we've got the geopolitical tensions, we've got the macroeconomic tensions, of course we've got monetary policy. We now have a very interesting topic coming up and really being pushed to the forefront of crypto during all this uncertainty, and that is regulatory clarity. Joe Biden, of course, is set to sign an executive order this week. Now, they said this last week and the week before, tackling cryptocurrencies, essentially tasking the various agencies within the United States government to tackle and build a regulatory framework about crypto, as they believe that the future of money is digital. Now, we've heard, and I'm going to make a separate video talking about CBDCs, because I think CBDCs are a bad thing by and large. I think if you want to give your government complete control over what you can and can't buy, and whether you're able to or not partake in the financial world, then move towards CBDCs. I think cash is one of the most anonymous things. And with all this taking place, with all the geopolitical stuff going on, the need for a monetary system outside of the government's grasp has never been so in demand. You know, Bitcoin was built for this, ladies and gentlemen. It was built out of the mistakes. In the first block of Bitcoin, it essentially said that the chancellor sort of pushed through more stimulus, more bank bailouts. And Bitcoin was born out of the shortfallings of banks, the shortfallings of governments around the world that had essentially inflated and reduced people's buying power with the fiat systems that they kind of dictated they had to use. So this is coming. We'll be getting into a number of these articles. This was from Blockworks, but they took this from Reuters. We'll talk about it, and it's very interesting because they actually mentioned down here, Biden's order sets a 180-day deadline for a series of reports on the future of money and the role that cryptocurrencies will play in the evolving landscape. Guys, one reason that we can stay relatively bullish on cryptocurrency, even during everything that's happening, not only has it held up actually quite well, I would argue, against the likes of the Nasdaq, the S&P, and a number of other indexes, but because we are on the cusp of potential adoption, guys, which would see crypto go a lot further than where it is. You've got to remember, crypto is still a very small industry. $1.7 trillion is nothing. We haven't seen any kind of a real boom for crypto. The dot-com boom was $5.5 trillion. What I want to do in regards to this, before we jump into these articles and everything else that we've got to cover, like exchange inflows, etc., we're actually seeing a lot more outflows. So we're in a very low volume. There's not many people selling, but there's more people selling than buying, if that makes sense. So we'll talk about it all. Also, we do in these videos, and we have been talking for the past 4 months. Meanwhile, the rest of YouTube, certainly the crypto YouTube, is now just starting to talk about it. And you can check on these daily videos, we talk about every single day, pretty much for the past 4 months. Watch your stocks, watch your commodities, because they all play a role, you know, and they're all a good indication of just how well or how badly the economy is doing. Commodities right now are essentially the new cryptos. They are going through the roof. This is sort of the precursor to a recession, and I'll explain why. I'm going to make a much longer video on this later on today, but we've just got so much to go through. 3 videos coming out today, guys. They're all going to be well worth a watch. This was from the Congressional hearing, which essentially happened on the 3rd of March. If you guys want to know what's going on with the US economy, watch this, because Jerome Powell gave a lot of insights into what he was or wasn't going to do with we've got the CPI data coming up, we've got the FOMC, which is where the Fed get together and meet and decide what they're going to do. He essentially said, look, we are likely to do a 25 basis point. I doubt they'll do a 50, because I don't think the economy can really handle that right now. A 25 basis point Fed fund rate rise. And they're actually, aiming for a sort of 1970s style landing. You know, that's how they see the economy right now. But this clip is in regard to cryptocurrencies, which was mentioned quite a few times throughout this hearing. And I think you guys are going to want to hear it, because it references, regulatory clarity and why we need it. We need it now, and we need it to stay relevant in the race. I think Bitcoin mining is actually The US currently has the most hash power, so they're winning that race. And that was obviously largely after China expelled their Bitcoin miners. Now, they did that for a number of reasons. One of them was the energy crisis that they're having. China's been having an energy crisis before all this. So there's lots of interesting things taking place on the macroeconomic landscape that you, as a cryptocurrency investor, need to come to terms with. Otherwise, you'll be looking at your market, you'll be looking at crypto, and you'll be going, it doesn't make much sense. You know, we've never seen so much adoption. We've never been, you know, we are the most evolved we've ever been, the most going on there's ever been, the most interest in terms of institutions, but the price isn't correlated. And that's because of everything happening on a macroeconomic scale. So I'll play this clip, guys, and then we'll get into some of these articles. We'll look at some of the indices, some of the stocks, some of the relevant things, obviously Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Cardano, and then we'll sort of move on, and I'll wrap this video up.
I now recognize the gentleman from Connecticut, Mr. Himes, for 1 minute.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, probably the most effective tool we've deployed against Putin's outrageous attack on Ukraine is the sanctions on the Russian central bank and the freezing of Russian foreign reserves. Our ability to do so stems mostly from the dollar's preeminent position as the world's reserve currency. It is time, in fact, it is past time for all of us to lead on creating a regulatory environment in which we, rather than the world's despots, terrorists, and money launderers, benefit from the emergence of cryptocurrency, including a central bank digital currency. Mr. Chairman, one of the headlines on my news feed this morning reads, "Russians turn to crypto amid increasing sanctions," as the chairwoman indicated. The subcommittee I chair and the full committee have done and will do hard work on this topic, but it is time for all of us to act. Mr. Chairman, I can't shake the image of 17th century bankers sitting around London, unable to imagine that their gold pieces and copper plates could be replaced by these worthless pieces of paper. Let's not be those guys. Let's lead and not follow.
Fantastic. He said all, you know, money is changing. That's why Biden and his administration are calling this the future of money. And we have, essentially, there's so much going on. I don't want to get too conspiratorial and speculative in what I think is taking place. But what I am going to say to you guys is read between the lines for goodness sake, because there's so many people taking what the media is pushing. And by the way, have you seen the amount of media slip-ups recently? You know, there is so many people pushing a narrative in the media that just is so far from the truth. There's two sides to every story. Understand both sides and then make your own judgment. Don't just take at face value what the media are portraying to you guys as the reason all of this is happening. There are reasons for this happening that are not the ones that the media are focusing on and not the ones that the majority of the masses understand. You know, there are economic reasons. Putin has long gone against the dollar and been against the dollar as the world reserve currency, and in actual fact said that the US are destroying that status themselves. The world is evolving, and in our lifetimes, ladies and gentlemen, I believe, and I think crypto could play a huge role in it, we are going to see a new monetary system, if you will. Now, that could incorporate the old one, but it's going to evolve in much the same way that the senator essentially there said that, you know, let's not be the bankers back in the day that were going, how could you possibly replace gold with this paper? We all use paper now and we don't really take metals. Or some people do, some people don't. So it's extremely interesting everything that's going on. It's the reason we've stayed relatively bullish. Let me be absolutely clear when I say that this is not the breeding ground for positive market action. Certain markets will do very well in this, like your commodities markets, like the likes of gold, a number of other things. But certain markets, it's not a speculative market blooming atmosphere right now. It's just not. Because when we have all these commodities rising, when we have really high inflation, when we have rising prices across the board, that hits people in the pocket. Their wages haven't gone up, yet their bills have doubled. Where do they get that money from? Well, they have to cut back on other things, like putting money into the stock market, like doing this, like doing that. And it all has an impact on markets and the market liquidity. We have that on the back of the Fed looking to tighten their Fed fund rate, the interest rate, and actually increase it. And they're also talking about reducing their balance sheets, which I don't even think they're going to get to. Imagine dumping that liquidity on markets. I mean, are you insane? They have made such a mess of this that it's just, you know, it's hard to really see a way out without something seriously going wrong. And unfortunately, speculative markets don't fare well in that environment. But one thing crypto has for it is it may be a lifeboat. It may be the new system of money that people run to. Now, they are working on CBDCs, which I am going to do a longer video on, where we're going to talk about the exchequer and some of the Rishi Sunak, who's the exchequer of the UK, talking about how he's going to move towards a digital currency that will give people essentially, or governments, more control. We're already seeing a lot of big financial suppliers start to cut people off from finance. We saw it first with Canada, which was extremely scary. We're now seeing it with the Russians. For example, Coinbase, I think, are just basically blacklisting or just taking off and shutting down any IP address from Russia. So if you're using a VPN, make sure it's not coming from there. So anyway, let's get into it, guys. Joe Biden to sign executive order on crypto this week. Report. The US president will reportedly sign a long-anticipated executive order directed towards further cryptocurrency regulation within the country. President Joe Biden is reportedly preparing to sign an executive order. This essentially comes from the Reuters report, so we'll go straight to the source. Biden to order studies on regulating issues, cryptocurrency source. Washington. So this came out on the 7th of March from Reuters, so this came out yesterday. President Joe Biden is expected to sign a long-awaited executive order this week, directing the Justice Department, Treasury, and other agencies to study the legal and economic ramifications of creating a US central bank digital currency, a source familiar with the White House said Monday, so yesterday. The White House last year said it was considering a wide-ranging oversight of the cryptocurrency market, including an executive order to deal with growing threats of ransomware and other cybercrimes. Biden's order sets a 100-day deadline for a series of reports, the future of money and the role of cryptocurrencies will play in the evolving landscape. We could see significant shift in the policy in 180 days. This is a likely step towards creating the creation of a central bank digital currency. The source said, citing significant momentum behind such a move within the Biden administration. Biden has the midterms coming up, so I actually don't think that he is going to move harshly. I mean, he's already extremely unpopular. That isn't coming from my mouth, that's coming from the polls. He's extremely unpopular. His popularity has nosedived there's multiple things and reasons why. And ultimately, this is something that's coming. It's something that's needed. We have a lot of people on the cryptocurrency spaces side. We have a lot of people that view this as, the next kind of technological revolution that I think it is, and we've been saying for a long time, and that could see crypto absolutely explode. Certainly, we're waiting on a Bitcoin ETF to be approved, a spot ETF. We have a futures ETF. That would be huge, because that would mean your institutions could then essentially start to monetize Bitcoin. And they could do it very, very cheaply because there's no storage cost with Bitcoin. There is a bit of security cost if you really want to take it to the next level. But it's very small in regards to the likes of storing gold and other things that you have to back these ETFs with. So that could be the catapult that sends crypto to the moon. And I would argue that we've really not seen anything yet for crypto. Certainly Bitcoin, the likes of Ethereum. I mean, these technologies and the likes of Cardano are still being built, guys. Then they've not even been built yet. Ethereum is still being worked on. A lot of these smart contract blockchains that I think are going to change the world in a big way, cut out a lot of middlemen, and be the systems that people run things on because they are more efficient. We've not even seen that happen yet. We've not even seen Bitcoin gain a reserve sort of, or a real store of value kind of status, which I think could come. People may go, okay, well, it's actually faring up quite well. It's certainly faring up very well in regards to the NASDAQ, which closed on the down yesterday. It's not open yet. We've got the S&P, which is still falling off a cliff, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, actually putting in lower lows at this point. Crypto hasn't done that. We've not put in a lower low since July, sort of May, June, July, which is insane given everything that's happened. I would argue crypto is actually holding up quite well. We've got commodities going through the roof. We're going to make a longer video. We do mention it every single day, but we are going to make a lot longer video on this because I do have worries and I do have ways that I think people can perhaps prepare for this to continue because there's no signs of anything ceasing up at the moment. We don't know that. I mean, markets and sentiment can turn on a dime. They're very over dramatic and over amplified. But what I am seeing right now is if this continues, I'm telling you absolutely 100% that your food prices are going to go up, your petrol's going to go up, your goods across the board are going to go up. We're seeing the likes of nickel. I mean, I come from the dental trade. I have noticed, and still have one foot in the dental trade, by the way, a huge increase in raw materials that we use to make certain appliances. Huge increase. Not only an increase, in many cases, a shortage. So it's amazing. It's certainly amazing what's going on right now. Lots of people flooding to gold. The gold chart's actually bullish as hell, by the way, guys. If I was looking at this, you know, I'd essentially be calling for this cup and handle, and that you're going to get continuation out of it. And I'm even more bullish on silver. I'm still overarching. I think crypto will make you more money over time, but I think these guys may actually serve as your real hedge for a period when there's a lot of risk going about. So we've covered a lot in this video. Quick recap: we've got Biden back at it with the executive order. Hurry up and do it, for goodness sake. You have left this way too long, and the reason being is because you're still trying to figure out just how much of a threat it is or it isn't. And also, we've now got the complication of, okay, well, what happens if Putin goes, okay, well, I'm only going to accept Bitcoin for my oil? Now, I don't think there's a liquidity there for that to happen. There's lots of people speculating, okay, well, maybe he moves to like a gold currency, or maybe he, you know, between him and China, they start sorting something out in a new kind of currency that they can trade in. But they have essentially been cut off from the US dollar and the Great British Pound, which, look, I'm not in the position to be running the country. It's probably a good job that I'm not, because I'm definitely not qualified for that at all. But what I will say is things seem very irrational. Not a lot of things make sense, which leads me to believe that there's an alternative and hidden motives here. That's all I'm going to say on that topic. Now, that is all I have for you in this video, guys. Remember, it is extremely long. I watch all these congressional meetings because, of course, it's what I do. So I've watched the whole 3 hours of this. There was a lot of gems in here. This was, from the start, was really one that I found very interesting, how he's really saying, look, this is the evolution of money. Let's not be those guys that were sat with gold, possibly not imagining how worthless pieces of paper could replace it. Here we are today, guys. In fact, they've gone from paper to just numbers on a screen. All I have for you in the video, guys, I'm going to love and leave you on that note. If you have enjoyed this content, a like is always appreciated. So is a comment, and I'll catch you all in the next YouTube video. Thanks a lot for watching, guys.